Right then, hello there everybody, Adam Clery here for you, ACFC, and if I look tired, it's because I was up until 1 AM last night watching Manchester United's biggest win of the year. Rory McIlroy finally winning the Masters. But as for the football team though, it's been bad result after bad result after bad result after bad result, and nobody on telly seems to be able to agree why that keeps happening, so this is a video on why that keeps happening. Alright, so I'm not going to take a bath in the stats because Man United fans, you won't really want to see them, but just so we're all clear where we are, their season has looked like this. Now they sacked Erik ten Hag here when they were only like 4 or 5 points off the Champions League places. They appointed Ruben Amorim here. And since then, it's just progressively got worse and worse and worse and worse. In fact, here is a stat that I invented all on my own with my brain. Since they beat Manchester City in mid-December, they have one solitary Premier League win that wasn't against any of the minging teams currently in the bottom three. That's really bad. They just keep losing matches. Why? Well, the thing is, Manchester United have two major problems. Yep, no, actually, you're right, there's substantially more than two major problems, going right to the very top of the club, all the way down to the individual players. But for the purposes of this video, in this browser window that you are watching on a phone and or tablet and or television, we're going to talk about two. So there's two. And problem number one is that this system that Ruben Amorim deploys already, every single team in the Premier League knows exactly how to play against it. The anti-Amorim formula is as predictable as the site of the system itself, and Newcastle very conveniently provided some great examples this weekend of what it is. So the 3-4-2-1 that he likes to play is excellent in transition. Like, genuinely, I will heap praise upon it for what it can do between the lines and just after the ball is turned over. I'll even show you some of that slightly later in the video. But when it is required to build out from the back, which, Manchester United, that's going to happen a lot in games, it has been entirely sussed out. So what happens is, because Man United like to use their goalkeeper, the centre back, he steps out a bit and is joined here by the more defensive midfielder while they sort of go there, and they end up with this like 3-2 shape. And that's absolutely fine. Like, most teams will do this 3-2 shape because most other teams will only commit 2 players here to press this first line. So the idea is you can move them around, you can get the ball into these 2 players here. Even if they've got a 3, they should be able to find a way to do that. And once they've got the ball, they can turn and they're away up the pitch. Either they can feed the wing backs or they can feed the other midfielder, or if they're feeling really sexy, they can feed the 2 10s. Not to use the L word here, but this is exactly how it functioned at Lisbon. But what everybody seems to be doing to Manchester United now is just not pressing these 3 players, just letting them have the ball, not allowing the space to open in behind, and just making sure their options in front of them are limited and difficult. And you don't tend to see this done very often, because when you sit off this first line, it allows these players to use their quality, play over the press and into their teammates into space. But teams do not fear doing this against Man United. And that's because when they go along, they're either going into the wing backs, who are really badly suited for holding a ball out of the sky and shouldering somebody off and bringing their teammates into play, so they get squeezed from that direction, forcing them to come back into the middle. Or they go really long into the attackers, where most Premier League defences will back themselves 100 times out of 100 to gobble those long balls up, win those physical battles. Or, and this is the key bit, if you do still try and play into these 2 players, it's now a lot riskier to do that. They end up getting squeezed when the press gets backed up. And as in yesterday's example, players like Lindelof and Ugarte are so not suitable to be receiving these balls facing their own goal with other players crowding around them. That's not who they are. They're bad at that. And you see this in the Bruno goal. Like, it's an awful pass from the goalie, yes, but what is it you'd actually want him to do here? Like, if you go wide into the wing backs, like, this side is already closed off and Tino Livramento is already putting the squeeze on the other side, so that would again just force him back towards his own goal. And so the decision he makes, just go long, get it out of there and don't worry about it, is probably the right one. It's just that the execution is absolutely terrible. Like, what a team who's really good at doing this would do is one of those really quick bounce passes like your Brightons and your Man Cities used to be famed for. The goalkeeper could fire it into Ugarte, who, if he was really good at doing this, if his touch was absolutely magnetic, he could just knock a perfectly weighted little side ball into Lindelof, who could then get spun and play forward. But again, we're talking about Ugarte and Lindelof. That's not who they are. That is not their bag, baby, to quote Austin Powers. But anyway, the thing is about the execution being crap is that's the major problem with Manchester United. The opposition now almost always expect the execution to be crap. Right, we're going to do some really in-depth and aggressive graph work here, so apologies if this triggers any repressed memories from first year university. This one, as a starting point, is absolutely astounding. This is every single time Newcastle took the ball off Manchester United in that 96, 97 minutes. It's either tackles, interceptions, ball recoveries, every time they proactively go and get it. I'm just gonna leave it up for a couple of seconds so you can have a proper look at this, right? And observe just how many of them were going this way, remember, that's Man United's goal. How many of them are in an area you personally would not want your team to lose the ball in. And trust me, right, as somebody who looks at these graphs a lot for work, not just because I'm weird, that is loads. Loads and loads. Swear word, loads. All right, Man United fans, you're done wincing at this one. This is graph number 2. This is all of Man United's unsuccessful passes. Now, yes, there is a bit of an overlap here. A lot of the tackles, the interceptions, the recovery come about as a result of these, but there is also some stuff that's all of its own. Some of it's straight out of play, some of it's just into the middle of nowhere. Overlap is substantial, yes, but this is bad in its own right. And all told, right, when you factor in Newcastle doing all of this and you combine it with Manchester United not doing all of this, Mark Stats, who is an essential follow on Twitter if you're a terrible bad nerd like me, worked out that they lost the ball in the danger zone 50 times in that match. That is Manchester United just hoying the ball into the old Kenny Loggins more than once every 2 minutes. Wait, hang on. Yeah, every 1 minute, 57 seconds. You cannot win a game of football if you are doing that. That is an astounding statistic. And just to distill this even further, Opta produced this graph as well, which shows that Newcastle recorded a league high 16 high turnovers in this match. And if you're just wondering what the difference between the high turnovers and the danger zone stuff is, like a high turnover, Opta define it as like an attack that's won by getting the ball off your opponent within certain... It's basically the premium, luxury, super dangerous and fun version of all this. And what's particularly mad about that is obviously high turnovers are the thing that the really aggressive teams live or die by. And as we've seen, Newcastle weren't even being really, really aggressive, and they still got 16 of them, turned 5 of them into shots and 3 of them into goals, which is only the second time this season that's happened. The first was Arsenal mullering Man City a few months ago, in case you're curious. Okay, I'm just not going to be too dramatic about this. Teams can lose the ball here. This stuff can happen in a game of football, but I am going to have to chuck Mark Stats some decent money for his Ko-Fi account because he pulled this graph together yesterday, right? And hope you sat down. Since Ruben Amorim took charge of Manchester United, they are the second worst team in the Premier League for giving the ball away in this danger zone. I don't know why I'm doing quotes for it, that's just what it's called, but danger zone. And the thing is, given the improvements in Crystal Palace in recent weeks, you would suspect that by the time the season concludes, they'll probably not be second bottom, they'll be bottom. Bottom's a funny word. And so, for all the talk when Ruben Amorim joined Manchester United, partially by me, yes, about how this system was based around direct running and carrying and take-ons, they've also got the second worst stats in the Premier League for that, because the situations for which it has to happen in aren't happening. And the thing is, they are actually really, really good in transition. I'm being genuinely serious. They're excellent at the thing they're trying to be excellent at. You can see it in the goal, like the lines are actually broken here. This is Newcastle's defence, this is Newcastle's midfield. They've actually found a way to get through them and disorganise them. And once they get into that situation, here is the direct running they're supposed to do. Here is sort of the ambitious ball-carrying goal threat. Like Dalot charges into the middle of the pitch, not just down the line. It creates a space out wide for Garnacho, and he carries on his run as well, and Newcastle can't live with it, and they get the quintessential Ruben Amorim system goal. But the problem they've got, and this is still problem number one, but I'm going to do problem number two in a second. The problem they've got is that you cannot reliably get into situations like this if you cannot reliably get out of situations like this. And just to check back on that graph, how reliably can they get out of situations like this? The second worst amount of any team in the Premier League. So, there you go. Oh shit, yeah, the second problem. Yeah, so the other major issue that I have decided upon is Bruno Fernandes. He was the left-sided number 10 in this game, and yet if you look at his heat map, Newcastle somehow limited him to this. See this blob? This should be here. And just hang on if you're about to push dog do through my letterbox for criticising Man United's only really good player. This is a clever point I'm making, just bear with me, right? If we break this down by halves, you see the problem. The first half, this is his pass map. They found him, not very often, but still did find him in the areas in which you want him to be. Like this little one here. You remember that. It's a great little link up with Joshua Zirkzee, who arguably should score, and we're all applauding what a great move that is. But Newcastle, already knowing about the threat in transition and sort of structuring the team to stop that happening again, realised that Bruno was sort of the only player who could then unpick what it was they were doing. So they made an alteration in the second half to stop this. They went to a 5-4-1 when they were out of possession instead of having 4 at the back, and they dropped Jacob Murphy into the defensive line. And that meant that if Bruno went all the way out to the left-hand side to find a bit of space, which he likes to do, or he received the ball in this area, which he wants to do, either Trippier or Jacob Murphy could press out of the defensive line and cover him. And you can't really do that if you're in a back four, because you leave a huge amount of space for the wing-back to get into. But because there's 5, one of them can basically just follow him out into the space. And you can see here with Trippier, keep following him the deeper he goes, so he can't get turned when he gets the ball, and that takes him out of the game. And thus, if we get rid of his first half passes and replace them with his second half passes, there's nothing. The part of the pitch you would want him to be, again, there wasn't loads in the first half, but there was some, and now there's nothing. They forced him back and back and back and back into this part of the pitch. Man United are chasing this game from the 46th minute. They are losing, and their most creative weapon cannot get anywhere near the area where he is effective. Now that is, crucially, not the fault of Bruno Fernandes by any stretch of the imagination, but when your approach is predictable and you only have one player who's really capable of suddenly asking the opposition some different questions, it becomes very easy to counter. And it is that lack of quality throughout this team that I think might be the real issue here. Like, I know this is the kind of channel where we get all giddy and excited about shapes and formations and tactics, but for all the money spent, this team is really short on the quality required to play this shape or this formation or this tactic. And it's why, weirdly, I actually wouldn't write them off in the Europa League, because they actually do have a noticeable quality difference between them and the other teams in it. It's just that the Premier League is mad. You're living in an age when Real Madrid want Bournemouth centre-back, when the West Ham squad that won the Conference League are now 17th. It's hard here. And I mean, yeah, now that I think about it, I probably could have boiled all this down to one tweet. But for everybody saying the problem is the players, everybody saying the problem is the system, I remain convinced that the problem is neither the players nor the system. It is these players in this system. Like, they go completely hand in hand. They could play a different way and it might be better, or they could get different players and it might be better. But these lads doing this feels horrible. But yes, there you go. They're not going to get relegated. They might still win a trophy, so I don't know. Who knows? I'm trying to keep the end of these videos a lot shorter because otherwise I rabbit on for 2 minutes. So I'll just hit you with the bullet points. Thank you for watching. Please let me know what you think of this Man United team in the comments. I would like to take the temperature of this fan base. Are you in crisis mode or are you just whatever? At this point, get all that down there. These are my social media handles, the nice fancy graphics, they're coming soon. I'm running the Hackney Half for the campaign against living miserably. I'll put that in the description, trying to raise a bit of money, that'll be really nice. Thank you for watching. I love you, happy Monday, if that's when you're watching it. If it's not, then happy whatever day. That was short, was that short? That felt short, bye.